Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today I have some absolutely shocking news for you. Happiness was short-lived. Tragedy struck right in the middle of their reunion dinner, just after escaping the deadly forest and returning home before she could even finish a bowl of hot porridge. Tuttien suddenly coughed up blood and collapsed right into Jack's arms. Jack's gut-wrenching scream, "Mom, help my wife," marked the beginning of a long, nightmarish night. At the hospital, the doctor dropped a bombshell: acute blood cancer. The days of torture and exhaustion had triggered malignant cells pushing her toward death's door faster than ever. But folks, even more terrifying than this vicious cancer is the poison in the human heart. Upon hearing that her former daughter-in-law was dying, the evil mother-in-law didn't feel a shred of remorse. Instead, she cracked a barbaric smile. "If she dies, my criminal secrets will be buried forever." Darkness engulfed the hospital. An assassin received orders to sneak into the emergency room and silence Tuttien before she could wake up. Will Jack be able to protect his wife from the Grim Reaper and the hands of a killer? Hit that like button and subscribe right now to hold your breath with us as we follow this life and death battle. The late afternoon sky turned a gloomy lead gray, the last weak rays of sunlight struggling before being swallowed by the night. At a small cafe tucked behind old gnarled trees, Jack sat motionless. The coffee in front of him was stone cold, the steam long gone, but inside him, a fire of anxiety was burning every cell in his body. 15 days, 15 long, agonizing days had passed since Tuttien vanished without a trace. 15 days of hopeless calls to a dead phone line. 15 sleepless nights staring at the ceiling with 1,000 questions. Where is she? Is she alive? Or is she already? Jack didn't dare finish that thought. He was afraid the thought alone would curse his little wife. Sitting opposite Jack was a seasoned investigator. His face was stern, his sharp eyes looking straight at Jack. The tension between them was tight as a guitar string about to snap. "We scoured the entire farm area," the officer said, his voice steady but cold. "Every bush, every stream, every rocky slope. There are no signs of an accident, no slip marks, no blood." Jack let out a sharp breath. His heart pounded. No accident. That means she didn't fall off a cliff. That means she might still be alive. A ray of hope flashed, but was immediately snuffed out by a lump in his throat. If it wasn't an accident, then what kidnapping? Is she being held somewhere? The thought of Tuttien being imprisoned alone, terrified and screaming for help in vain, made Jack clench his fists until his knuckles turned white. The investigator leaned in, lowering his voice, to say something that sent a chill down Jack's spine. "There's one more thing. This clue is crucial." According to witnesses living near the farm, on the very afternoon Tuttien disappeared, they saw a woman lurking around there. Jack held his breath. "Who? Sir. Who?" "Mrs. Tui, her ex-mother-in-law." The name Mrs. Tui dropped into the conversation like a 1,000-pound boulder. Jack froze. A jolt of electricity ran down his spine. Why was she there? Why was she asking about Tuttien so sneakily? A horrific picture began to piece together in Jack's mind. Tien's disappearance wasn't random. There was a human hand behind it. And that hand might belong to the woman Tuttien once called Mom. Jack walked out of the cafe like a man who had lost his soul. Every step felt as heavy as lead. Rage boiled in his blood. He wanted to rush straight to Mrs. Tui's house, grab her and scream in her face. "What did you do to my wife? Where are you hiding her?" But the reason of a mature man held him back. The police officer had warned him, "Don't startle the snake in the grass. If you act rashly, she'll wipe away all the traces. Then Tuttien's life will be in even greater danger." Jack stood, leaning against a streetlight, looking up at the sky. A single tear rolled down the strong man's cheek. If he hated Mrs. Tui, he hated himself 10 times more. Why didn't I go with her that day? Why did I let her go alone? If only... The words, "if only," cut into his heart like thousands of knives. Regret was gnawing at his soul, every second, every minute. He knew that if anything happened to Tuttien, he would never forgive himself. After a fierce internal battle, Jack wiped his tears. His eyes became more determined and terrifying than ever before. He pulled out his phone and called a close friend in the private investigation world. "Find me everything on Mrs. Tui. Her schedule, her relationships, her debts. I want to know her every move for the last 15 days. Immediately." Jack knew the real war was just beginning. He had to find evidence before it was too late. At the same time, on the trail leading to the farm, the place where all this tragedy began, Mrs. Tui was walking with a worried look on her face. She hadn't returned to the scene to look for her daughter-in-law, but to see if she had left any evidence behind. Suddenly, her heart stopped. In the distance, through the dim twilight, a familiar figure was limping along. That thin frame, that long hair. "Tien, she's still alive!" Mrs. Tui screamed internally. Her entire body froze in terror. If Tuttien manages to find Jack, if that girl speaks the truth about the debt, about the robbery of the necklace, she would rot in jail. Fear morphed into vicious cruelty. Trembling, Mrs. Tui pulled out her phone and called the gangster hung the scar. "Hello, she's alive. I just saw her. Send your men right now. We have to catch her before she gets to Jack. Hurry up." After the call, Mrs. Tui looked around. No one was there. She decided to act alone first. She crept after Tuttien, hiding behind gnarled trees, her eyes cold as a predator, hunting its prey. Meanwhile, Tuttien was at the brink of total exhaustion. Her injured leg was swollen. Every step sent a jolt of pain straight to her brain. High fever made her head spin, blurring her vision. But one thing kept her awake: fear. The instinct of a fugitive told her, "Someone is following me." The sound of dry leaves crunching behind her. Heavy breathing that wasn't hers. Panic set in. Tuttien forced herself to walk faster, even though her legs wanted to give out. Her heart pounded like it would burst through her chest. "I have to get home. I have to see Jack. As long as I see him, I'll be safe." Just then, Mrs. Tui lost the trail at a bend. She gritted her teeth, then hatched a devilish plan. She changed her voice deliberately, calling out in that fake sweet tone from the old days. "Tien, Mommy is here. I've come to pick you up." The call echoed through the desolate forest. To anyone else, it was a loving call. But to Tuttien, it was the call of the Grim Reaper. A cold shiver ran down her spine. "She is here. She came to catch me." Without a second thought, Tuttien dove onto a thorny shortcut. She didn't dare look back. She ran with the very last ounce of strength she had left. Night had fallen completely. Jack had just returned home after meeting the private investigator. He sat wearily on the sofa, about to pour a glass of water. Suddenly, knock, 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 a faint tapping on the door. It was so weak that if he hadn't been paying attention, he would have thought it was the wind. But his gut told him something. Jack sprang up, rushing to open the door. The wooden door opened, and before his eyes stood a ghost. Tuttien stood there. Her clothes were tattered, covered in mud and dried blood. Her face was deathly pale, not a drop of blood left in it, her cracked lips trembling violently. She looked at him with eyes glazed over from fever, her breathing heavy like a bellows. "Jack!" She whispered his name, then her body went limp, collapsing forward. Jack lunged to catch his wife just before she hit the ground. The first thing he felt was heat. Her body was burning up like a hot coal. Her fever was incredibly high. "You're back! You're really back!" Jack screamed, tears streaming down his face. He scooped her up, rushing inside. He laid her on the sofa, his limbs shaking with panic. Tuttien was delirious. In her delirium, she still gripped Jack's shirt tight, mumbling, Don't take me. Mom, please don't hit me." Those unconscious words stabbed straight into Jack's heart. He realized just how horrific the thing she had endured must have been. Jack forced himself to stay calm. He knew he couldn't panic now. He rushed to the kitchen. He remembered his grandmother used to use fish mint leaves to bring down a fever fast. Jack grabbed a handful of fish mint from the fridge, his hands shaking as he put them in the mortar. Thud, 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 the sound of the pestle hitting the mortar, mixed with the man's choked sobs. He squeezed out the juice, ran upstairs, and gently pried his wife's mouth open to feed her small spoonfuls. "Stay with me. Drink this. I'm right here. No one can hurt you anymore." As Jack fed her the medicine, he used a warm towel to wipe her body. Looking at the bruises covering his wife's arms, Jack's gaze shifted from heartbreak to murderous rage. Whoever did this, he swore he would make them pay in blood. Ladies and gentlemen, Tuttien has returned, but she is hovering on the border between life and death due to exhaustion and infection. And outside that door, in the pitch-black night, Mrs. Tui hasn't given up yet. She knows Tuttien made it into Jack's house. What will she, and hung the scar, do next to silence her? And in her delirium, what shocking secrets about the crime will Tuttien reveal? Will Jack's bowl of fish mint juice save his wife's life before it's too late? In the small kitchen of Jack's family, a dim yellow light offered a fragile warmth after the stormy days. The smell of fragrant rice porridge rose up, blending with the pungent scent of fish mint medicine. It was the smell of life, the smell of hope. Jack was busy at the stove stirring the porridge, but his eyes never left Tuttien for a second. He was afraid if he blinked, she would vanish like smoke again. Tuttien sat leaning against the wooden chair. She was so thin. Jack's shirt hung loosely on her, swallowing her fragile frame. Seeing Jack working hard, Tuttien struggled to stand up. The instinct of a gentle wife made her want to help her husband, even if it was just grabbing a bowl or chopsticks. "Let me help you," she said, her voice as weak as a breath. But the moment her thin hand touched the edge of the table, tragedy struck. The world before Tuttien's eyes suddenly spun violently. The ceiling swirled, the floor felt like it was crumbling beneath her feet. A terrifying wave of dizziness hit her, draining the last bit of energy left in her body. She swayed, grabbing at the air but catching nothing. And then, a hot metallic sensation gushed from her nose. Drip, drip, fresh red blood drops fell onto the stark white tiles, blooming like flowers of death. At first, just a few drops, but then the blood poured out uncontrollably. It flowed through Tuttien's trembling fingers, staining the faded shirt red. Her eyes rolled back in terror, then slowly glazed over, losing focus. "Jack, I can't breathe." Those were the last words she managed to choke out before darkness swallowed her consciousness. Her body went limp, like a puppet, with cut strings crashing onto the cold floor. The sound made Jack spin around, and the scene before him crushed his heart. His wife lay there motionless. Blood smeared across her face, which was as white as a corpse. Jack's blood-curdling scream tore through the silent night. "Mom, help save my wife!" There was no time to think. There was no time to cry. Jack scooped Tuttien up, rushing out of the house like a wounded beast. Mother Ly ran behind, pressing a towel to her daughter-in-law's nose to stop the bleeding, but the red blood quickly soaked through the white fabric. Jack's car tore through the night, shredding the thick fog. He had the pedal to the metal. The speedometer climbed to dizzying numbers. He didn't care about traffic laws anymore. He was racing against the Grim Reaper. Every passing second felt like a knife slicing into his heart. Tuttien, you are not allowed to sleep. Do you hear me? Open your eyes and look at me. Jack screamed in desperation as he drove. Tuttien lay in the back seat, her head resting on Mother Ly's lap. Her breathing was intermittent, fragile as a thread in the wind. Her hands were ice cold, the chill of life slowly leaving her body when the car screeched to a halt in front of the ER tires. Burning doctors and nurses were already waiting. They rushed the stretcher inside. The medical orders rang out, piercing the air. Patient has lost a lot of blood. Weak pulse. Blood pressure dropping. Prep the defibrillator. The emergency room doors slammed shut in front of Jack. The blinding red light turned on. An invisible but cruel wall now separated them. Inside was a battle for life. Outside was the hell of waiting. Jack slid down the cold wall. He clutched his messy hair, burying his face in his hands. Why? Why is God so cruel to her? She just escaped the claws of her mother-in-law, just escaped the deadly wilderness. She hadn't even finished a bowl of hot porridge, hadn't had a single peaceful sleep in his arms. Why does disaster keep piling onto this gentle girl's head? Thousands of horrifying theories flashed through Jack's mind. Did old wounds reopen? Did she suffer internal injuries from beatings? Or Is some monstrous disease silently killing her? Time passed as slowly as torture. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Finally, the emergency room doors opened. The head doctor stepped out, beads of sweat on his forehead. He removed his mask, his face extremely serious. Jack and Mother Ly rushed forward. "Doctor, how is my wife? Is she awake and ill?" The doctor looked at Jack with eyes full of pity. He shook his head slightly. "We've stopped the bleeding and put her on fluids. She is out of critical danger for now, but..." That word "but" made Jack's heart seize. But we discovered a very serious problem. It's not exhaustion, and it's not physical trauma. The doctor handed Jack a blood test result covered in alarming red numbers. "Look at these levels. Her white blood cell count has spiked 50 times higher than a normal person. Her platelets have dropped severely. This is why her nosebleed wouldn't stop, and why unprovoked bruises appeared on her skin." Jack tremblingly held the paper. "What do you mean, doctor? I don't understand." The doctor took a deep breath, lowering his voice. "We suspect she has acute leukemia. In layman's terms, blood cancer." The ground seemed to crumble beneath Jack's feet. His ears rang. Cancer. His wife. A girl only 24 years old, in the prime of her life, is carrying this death sentence. All the previous symptoms, fatigue, dizziness, the bruises he thought were from bumps, turned out to be signs of the Grim Reaper, and painfully, the psychological shock and physical torture in the deep forest over the past 15 days had triggered the cancer cells to grow at a terrifying rate, pushing her to the brink of death faster than ever. While Jack was paralyzed by the bad news, in a hidden corner of the hospital, a shadow was secretly watching. It was none other than Mrs. Tui's spy. She hadn't given up. She knew Tuttien was in this hospital. The news that Tuttien was critically ill, possibly with cancer, quickly reached her ears. In her dark house, Mrs. Tui cracked a cruel smirk. "Cancer. God is helping me. If she's dying, there will be no one left to testify against me." But she was still afraid. Dying isn't dead. What if on her deathbed, Tuttien confesses everything to Jack? What if she reveals the necklace robbery? Mrs. Tui picked up the phone, calling Hung the Scar again. Her voice was cold as ice. "She's at Hospital X. Find a way to sneak in. If she wakes up, silence her forever. Make it look clean, like she died from the illness." The hospital at night was silent as a grave, but hidden beneath were violent undercurrents. Tuttien lay there weak, unaware that besides the cancer gnawing at her body, a sharp human blade was inching toward her throat. Jack rested his head on the hospital bed, gripping his wife's cold hand. He swore he would protect her, that he would sell his entire fortune to treat her. But can he protect her from the vicious plot of humans? Fate truly knows how to mock the miserable. Just survived one disaster, only to face another. A death sentence of blood cancer hangs over her head. An enemy in the shadows is sharpening a knife waiting for a chance. Will Jack be alert enough to realize the danger lurking right inside his wife's hospital room? Will Tuttien wake up in time to expose her mother-in-law's true face before it's too late? Or will she take that injustice to her grave? The answer will be revealed in the next extremely intense episode, The Assassin in the Hospital in Tuttien's Last Words. Don't take your eyes off the screen. Leave a comment saying, "Pray for Tuttien to give strength to this poor girl." Remember to hit like and subscribe right now to be the first to know what Jack does when he discovers a stranger in his wife's room. Goodbye and see you next time.